This is the planet humans have been dreaming about for thousands of years. And the craziest part is that in the next 10 to 20 years, any one of us could step foot on this planet. Yes, I'm talking about Mars. Now, you might be thinking, Earth is already so beautiful, so why do we need to go to Mars? Well, I asked myself the exact same question, and when I found the answer, it blew my mind. Look, there's a very terrifying truth that we all need to understand. Earth will not be safe forever. 66 million years ago, a single asteroid wiped out the entire dinosaur species in just one collision. Now imagine if something like that happened today, the entire human civilization would be wiped out in an instant. And that is exactly why the world's greatest scientists and visionaries are saying that humans must become a multi-planetary species, meaning we have to live on more than one planet. Otherwise, our future is incredibly risky. Now, a very interesting question arises. If we have to go to another planet, why Mars? Look, there are 8 planets in our solar system, and most of them are either way too hot, way too cold, or they don't even have a solid surface, like Jupiter and Saturn, which are gas giants. Now, look at Venus, our closest neighbor. The temperature there is 450 degrees Celsius, which is hot enough to melt lead, and its atmosphere has clouds of sulfuric acid that will dissolve anything. So basically, going to Venus means instant death. When we talk about Mars, it is actually very similar to our Earth in many ways. A day on Mars is 24 hours and 37 minutes, which is almost exactly like Earth. It has seasons just like we do. Mars has a solid surface that we can walk on and build structures on. There is even water there, in the form of ice at the poles and underground. And the most important thing is that Mars is relatively close to us at an average distance of about 225 million kilometers. But this is where the real challenge begins. Reaching Mars and surviving there is not easy at all. Look, it takes a rocket about 7 to 9 months to travel from Earth to Mars because both planets are revolving around the sun in their own separate orbits. And we have to launch within a specific window that only opens once every 26 months. This means that if a mission leaves from Mars and something goes wrong, returning immediately is not an option. You would have to stay there for months. And that is the reason some people call a Mars mission a one-way ticket. Music. Now, just imagine that you've reached Mars, you open the door of your spaceship, and you look at the outside world. First, you'll see a red desert stretching out in every direction. Mars is called the red planet because its soil contains iron oxide, which we also call rust, and that's what gives it that red color. If you look up at the sky, it will look strangely pinkish-brown, not blue like on Earth. Here is where the first massive problem comes in. Mars's atmosphere is incredibly thin. How thin? Just understand that it's only 1% of Earth's atmosphere. And whatever little atmosphere it has is made up of 95% carbon dioxide, which is poisonous to us. That means if you take off your spacesuit, you will pass out in just 15 seconds, and within 2 minutes, you'll be dead. So basically, surviving on Mars for even 1 minute without special equipment is impossible. Speaking of temperature, the average temperature on Mars is minus 60 degrees Celsius. It is so cold that Antarctica would feel warm in comparison. And sometimes, the temperature plummets to minus 125 degrees Celsius, a cold so extreme that it would freeze your blood. Then there is the radiation issue, which is extremely serious. On Earth, we have a magnetic field that blocks harmful radiation coming from the sun. But Mars doesn't have this magnetic field, so cosmic and solar radiation hit the surface directly. Spending 1 year on Mars will expose you to the same amount of radiation you'd get in 8 years on Earth. And this radiation heavily increases the risk of cancer. So essentially, Mars is a hostile environment that will try to kill you in every possible way. So the question is, if Mars is so dangerous, why do we want to go there? And how will we do it? Currently, the most ambitious company preparing to go to Mars is SpaceX, founded by Elon Musk. Musk has clearly stated that his ultimate goal is to build a self-sustaining city on Mars that can house 1 million people. Now, this sounds totally crazy, but when you see what SpaceX is building, you'll realize this dream could actually come true. SpaceX has built a rocket called Starship, which is the biggest and most powerful rocket ever created. This rocket can carry a payload of 100 to 150 metric tons all the way to Mars. And the most crucial part is fully reusable. Just like an airplane flies over and over again, this rocket can be used repeatedly. This dramatically drops the cost. In the past, launching a single rocket cost hundreds of millions, and after one use, it would crash into the ocean. But SpaceX's rocket comes back, lands, and is ready to fly again. It is exactly because of this technology that a Mars mission has become possible. Before this, the cost of going to Mars was so high that nobody could afford it. The plan now is to first send unmanned missions that will deliver supplies and equipment to Mars. Then, the first manned mission will follow, carrying perhaps 10 to 20 astronauts. These first people will be brave souls who go knowing full well that they might never return. They will have to set up the basic infrastructure on Mars, like deploying habitat modules, setting up oxygen generation systems, installing solar panels, and building a water extraction system. Now, you must be wondering, where will they live on Mars? In the beginning, astronauts will live in prefabricated habitats sent directly from Earth. These will essentially be large, pressurized pods with controlled environments. The temperature will be regulated, oxygen will be supplied, and there will be radiation protection. But this isn't a long-term solution because sending that much material from Earth is far too expensive. That's why scientists are working on a very clever idea called in situ resource utilization. This means doing construction using the resources already available on Mars. And what is the best option? Building habitats underground. Yes, music. Building underground habitats will protect against radiation and keep the temperature stable. Just a few meters below the Martian surface, the radiation problem is solved because the soil absorbs it. Plus, the underground temperature remains much more stable. Music. There is another fascinating concept called 3D printing construction. The idea is to send massive 3D printers to Mars that will use the Martian soil, music, to literally print buildings. Martian soil contains iron and other minerals that can be used as construction materials. Robots, music, will go in advance and do all this work, so when humans arrive, the basic infrastructure will already be ready for them. Now comes the most critical question: where will the water on Mars come from? Without water, nothing is possible. You need water to drink, water to farm, and water to make oxygen, because you can extract oxygen from water using electrolysis. You can even make rocket fuel from water. The good news is that there is water on Mars, and in large amounts. The Martian poles have layers of ice holding millions of cubic kilometers of water. Plus, there is subsurface ice just a few meters below the ground. So basically, there's no shortage of water. We just need the technology to extract it. Both NASA and SpaceX are working on water extraction. The plan is to drill into the ground, heat the ice, and convert it into liquid water. This water will then be purified and ready for use. Music. And once you have water, a lot of problems are solved. Now let's talk about food. There are no McDonald's on Mars, so where will the food come from? Initially, music, packaged food will be sent from Earth. But that isn't sustainable. That's why farming will have to be done on Mars. Now, Martian soil contains certain chemicals that are toxic to plants, like perchlorates. So, you can't farm directly in Martian dirt. However, scientists have developed techniques like hydroponics and aeroponics where soil isn't needed at all. Plants are grown in nutrient-rich water in a controlled environment. Artificial sunlight is provided using LED lights, and the temperature is strictly controlled. Using this method, vegetables and fruits, music, can be grown on Mars. Actually, NASA has already successfully grown lettuce and other vegetables on the International Space Station. So this technology is proven and will work on Mars too. Imagine music, lush green plants growing inside a dome while a red desert sits just outside. How surreal that scene will be. Now let's talk about a very ambitious long-term plan called terraforming. Terraforming means altering a planet to make it Earth-like. That means thickening Mars's atmosphere, music, raising the temperature, generating oxygen, and eventually creating an environment where humans can live without spacesuits. This sounds like pure science fiction, but theoretically, it is possible. It would just take a very long time, maybe hundreds or thousands of years. One idea is to detonate nuclear bombs at the Martian poles to melt the ice and release water vapor and CO2 into the atmosphere. This would kickstart a greenhouse effect and begin warming Mars. Another idea is to place giant mirrors in Mars's orbit to focus sunlight on the poles and melt the ice. Yet another approach is to set up factories that continuously pump out greenhouse gases to thicken the atmosphere. Basically, this would be a multi-generational project that our children's children's children would complete. Looking at a practical timeline, SpaceX's plan is to land the first unmanned Starship on Mars by 2026 or 2028. Then, send the first humans by 2030 and establish a small colony of at least a few thousand people by 2050. NASA's plan is slightly more conservative, aiming for their first manned mission in the late 2030s. China is also in the Mars race, planning to send the first Chinese astronauts to Mars in 2033. Now, an interesting question. Who will go to Mars? For the initial missions, it will be trained astronauts and scientists who will conduct specific experiments and do construction work. But eventually, as the colony grows, normal civilians will be able to go too. Elon Musk has stated that his goal is to eventually make the price of a ticket to Mars equal to the cost of an average house. Meaning, if you can sell your house, you can go to Mars. And the people who go will have to work there because building a new world requires all kinds of skills. We'll need engineers, doctors, farmers, teachers, and even artists and musicians. Because human society needs culture, too. Just think about what daily life on Mars will be like. You'll wake up in your underground habitat. A screen will show the surface of Mars. It won't be an actual window, but a camera feed, because real windows wouldn't protect you from radiation. You'll eat breakfast, likely made from vegetables grown right there on Mars. Then, you'll put on your spacesuit and step outside to work on a project. In the evening, you'll meet people at the community center and maybe watch a movie beamed in from Earth. Communication with Earth will be there, but with a delay. It will take about 3 to 22 minutes, depending on planetary positions. That means video calls won't be possible, but sending and receiving messages will be. This brings up some deep philosophical questions. Think about the children born on Mars. These children will technically be Martians. They will have never seen Earth. Mars will be their only home. And because Mars's gravity is 38% of Earth's, these children will develop differently. Their bones and muscles will grow differently. And perhaps after a few generations, Martian humans will become physically distinct from Earth humans. This will be an entirely new chapter of evolution. Another crucial point is governance. What laws will apply on Mars? Currently, there is an international treaty on Earth called the Outer Space Treaty, which states that no country can claim sovereignty over any celestial body. Meaning, Mars doesn't belong to any single country. So when a colony is built there, whose rules will it follow? Will it be independent or under the control of an Earth government? All these questions are still unanswered and will probably only be resolved after the first colony is established. Some people say Mars is a chance for a fresh start, a place where we won't repeat humanity's past mistakes and can build a better society. Looking at the economics, Mars colonization is an extremely expensive project. Estimates vary, but settling the first 1 million people on Mars could cost anywhere from $100 billion to $1 trillion. That sounds like a massive amount. But put it in context. The world spends more than that on the military every single year. So the resources exist. We just need to change our priorities. And in the long term, Mars could actually be profitable. Mars might have rare minerals that are scarce on Earth. Plus, mining asteroids will be much easier for Mars because it sits right next to the asteroid belt. Above all, the technology developed for the Mars missions will be utilized back here on Earth. Just look at how many technologies the Apollo missions gave us that we use in our daily lives today. From water purification to computer chips, it's all a gift of a space program. Let me give you a realistic picture of what could happen in the next 50 years. In the 2030s, the first humans will land on Mars. This will be a small team that will stay for a few months, music, and return. In the 2040s, a permanent outpost will be established where researchers will live continuously. In the 2050s, the first proper colony will be built, housing maybe a few hundred people. In the 2060s and 2070s, the colony will expand and thousands will begin living there. And by the end of the century, there might just be a full-fledged city on Mars with millions of residents. This sounds incredibly ambitious, but remember that the Wright brothers flew the first airplane in 1903. And just 66 years later, in 1969, we were on the moon. Music. Human progress is exponential, not linear. Finally, I want to share a personal thought with you. Mars colonization isn't just a scientific achievement. It is a representation of the human spirit. We're the species that walked out of Africa and spread across the entire globe. We crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and made the impossible possible. Going to Mars is just the next step in that journey. Some people will argue, fix Earth's problems first. And that's a valid point. But history shows that exploration and problem-solving go hand in hand. We don't have to abandon one for the other. And the most important thing is the next time you look up at the night sky and see Mars glowing like a reddish, remember that within your lifetime, cities might be built on that dot, and people might be living there. We are in the generation that will witness this historic transition, the journey from Earth to a multi-planetary civilization. Just thinking about it gives me goosebumps, realizing how lucky we are to be born in this era. Even as I'm making this video, SpaceX is preparing for its next Starship test, and NASA is studying its Mars samples. This is all happening in real time, and we are witnessing this historic journey. So friends, that was the complete story of Mars colonization. A dream that was just science fiction a few decades ago is becoming reality today. We are literally at the point where the history of the future will be written. And who knows, maybe one of you will be among those first Martians who make the red planet their home. Because the impossible is only impossible until someone makes it possible. Stay curious, stay dreaming. And hey, if you ever go to Mars, make sure to invite me too. I'd love to hear what you think about this, so drop a comment below. If you enjoyed our conversation today, please share this video and subscribe to help the channel grow. Every bit of support counts.